Single mom exposed to mockery at work discovers her CEO is the incredible father of her baby. Jessica's heart raced as she adjusted her blazer, checking her reflection in the glass walls of the office. The techie, sterile space felt more suffocating than ever tonight. 31 years old and already entrenched in the harsh waters of corporate life, she was no stranger to judgmental whispers. "Look at the mom who can't keep up," they snicker behind their coffee cups. The weight of their mockery bore heavily on her shoulders as she reminded herself of Lily waiting at home, blissfully unaware of her struggles. Yet, their laughter echoed in her mind, a chorus of fears that she would never truly belong in a world dominated by ambitious go-getters unhindered by sleepless nights or toddler tantrums. The turning point arrived when her supervisor called her into the conference room, her heart pounding, not imagining what was to come. "Congratulations, Jessica," her boss beamed, presenting her with a promotion to lead a major marketing project. Just when she thought hope was slipping through her fingers, it had grabbed her tightly. This was her chance to finally silence the snickers, to prove that being a mother didn't mean being incapable. A sense of determination blossomed within her. But with hope came dread, for the project's success hinged on a presentation to Max, the enigmatic CEO, known for his brilliance yet notorious icy demeanor. As days passed, the gravity of the upcoming presentation gnawed at her. Her pulse quickened every time she thought about standing before him. Yet, as she steeled herself for the demanding task ahead, another feeling crept in, one she couldn't push away: vulnerability. She replayed the memories of their brief encounter years ago, how he had captivated her with just a few charming words. Was it foolish to think that someone like him could ever truly understand what she faced? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night before the retreat, a revelation shattered her resolve. Max was Lily's father. Jessica stumbled upon an old photograph tucked in a forgotten drawer, a memory she'd buried deep. Those carefree days came flooding back, laughter, shared dreams, and the sweet ache of a chance encounter that had faded into an afterthought. The daunting question loomed: would he turn from a source of strength into a reminder of everything she had tried to overcome? The new emotions conflicted with her professional aspirations, a swirling storm of fear that threatened to drag her down. As the retreat dawned, every heartbeat felt like a countdown to judgment. She glided through the hall filled with whispers, the weight of her colleagues' disbelief pressing down on her. She could feel their eyes, simmering with skepticism, but a flicker of resolve ignited. Could she summon the courage to stand before Max and confront not only her fears but their shared past? With her breath hitching, Jessica stepped onto the stage. The corporate elite shifted in their seats, curious yet dismissive. This moment required every ounce of her courage. As she faced Max's piercing gaze, her voice trembled but held fierce determination. Would he resonate with her struggle as a mother, or was she just another employee to him? The air crackled with eagerness and tension, leaving her poised on the precipice of revelation. Would she reveal the truth tearing at her insides, or would she swallow her story whole? As those around her held their breath, Jessica realized she was teetering on the edge, unable to turn back, yet terrified of the leap ahead. Jessica's pulse thundered in her ears as she stood at the edge of the stage. It felt as if the silence had swallowed her, the weight of 100 eyes boring into her skin. Every whispered doubt from her colleagues, every condescending smile flashed back, their disbelief ever palpable. She forced herself to latch onto the conviction that had carried her this far, the truth that being a mother did not contradict her professional abilities. But facing Max made that conviction feel fragile. She opened her mouth, her mind a tumult of strategic thoughts and emotional chaos. This was not merely a presentation, it was her moment of reckoning, a proving ground for both her career aspirations and her personal life. What if she could use this platform to redefine not just herself but also the narrative that surrounded her? No longer would she be the single mom struggling to keep up, she could become a powerful voice in the company, someone capable of steering new directions. "Good afternoon, everyone," Jessica finally managed to utter, her voice steadying like a taut string. She began her presentation, laying out the project vision with clarity and precision. But with each passing slide, she felt the echoes of their skepticism rise up, demanding acknowledgement. Jessica pressed on, leaning into her passion. Each graph, each statistic, reflected not only her knowledge but the hard work and sleepless nights she had endured. She could feel the first flickers of engagement, her audience leaning in closer, hairpins tumbling from their carefully constructed perspectives. But then her gaze flickered to Max. He was absorbing her every word, his face a mixture of contemplation and intrigue, but there appeared a shadow of something else in his eyes, a depth that suggested more than just glaze of corporate interest. It unsettled her, igniting an awareness of the unfinished business they shared. Did he know? Did he remember that night? As she transitioned into a more interactive segment, Jessica felt compelled to address the unspoken connection between them. It was a risk, one that could either elevate her or obliterate the credibility she had just begun to cultivate in this room. As someone who has navigated both the demands of motherhood and the obstacles in the corporate world, I understand the delicate balance we all must strike, she stated, her voice gaining strength. We often fear that our personal lives detract from our capabilities, but I believe they enhance them. A ripple of murmurs coursed through the gathering. Jessica pressed on, emboldened by a rising tide of determination as she wove in personal anecdotes, sharing the challenges that had led her to this point. Somehow, acknowledging her vulnerability breathed fresh air into her narrative. She saw nods of recognition amongst her peers, glimpses of her truth resonating with their own experiences. Momentarily, the stage felt less like a battleground and more like a sanctuary, a space where she could assert her identity unrefined yet wholly deserving. Salvation appeared within reach, yet the question remained, would it resonate with Max? As she wrapped up, she caught his gaze again, lingering upon the intrigue brewing in his expression. But seconds later, the moment vanished when one of her colleagues called her out, breaking the spell of her courage. "How can we trust that your personal experiences can translate into business acumen?" The taunting tone held the facade of professionalism, yet the intent was unmistakably critical, drawing eyes back to the frame she had fought to escape. A sudden tension gripped Jessica's stomach. She could feel the heaviness of their collective judgment bearing down once more. But everything inside her screamed against defeat. This was her life, her story, interwoven with her professional aspirations. Fate had brought her here, purpose whispered in her ear, urging her to answer the challenge. "The truth is, balancing these roles is what affirms my strength," she replied firmly, a newfound brightness igniting in her chest. "And maybe, just maybe, our failures can teach us more than our successes ever could." As the weight of her statement hung in the air, she scanned the room, catching a glimpse of surprise on Max's face. The tension shifted, crackling with potential like an uncharted current. With the final words chilling the atmosphere, Jessica was struck by the greater mystery unfolding. Was this the moment where she would reforge her identity, or was it simply the prelude to an inevitable confrontation with Max and the burdens of their past? Just as she thought clarity had found her, a realization struck. In revealing her truth, she may not only be confronting her colleagues but also the man whose presence ignited a war within. The tumultuous path ahead stood laden with promise and peril, and she could no longer ignore the inherent spark lurking beneath her surface, eager to ignite a new chapter entirely. The chatter in the room had morphed into a low hum, a backdrop to Jessica's racing thoughts. She could see the hesitation in her colleagues' eyes, the conflicting signals, admiration tempered by disbelief as they grappled with what they had just witnessed. The moment she had dared to challenge their perceptions, they had gasped collectively, caught off guard by her tenacity. Max's gaze bore into her like a spotlight, both disarming and invigorating. For a fleeting moment, she considered the possibility that he might speak up, defend her against the impending storm of skepticism. But the silence stretched too long, marked only by the restless shuffling of papers and shifting in chairs. This was her battle, and staring back at Max, she felt a flicker of resolve fortify her young, trembling heart. The question still hung in the air, heavy with challenge. Jessica took a deep breath, banishing the adrenaline coursing through her veins, daring to embrace the byproducts of vulnerability, strength, empathy, and authenticity. We live in a world where our capabilities are so often defined by narrow definitions of success, she said, her voice resonating across the room. But those definitions are not only outdated, they're incorrect. My experiences have led me to insights that drive innovation. She watched as several heads nodded in gradual agreement, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a seed planted. Jessica pressed on, pacing slightly now, buoyed by the escalating energy of the audience. The initial cynicism had started to fade and curiosity took its place. Perhaps there existed room for discussion beyond her credentials, a chance to redefine the dialogue around personal experience versus professional competency. Sliding into the next slide, she leveraged statistics that spoke to diverse leadership and its impact on corporate success. She dotted her arguments with stories of triumphant leaders who had moved against the grain, proving that motherhood was not a liability but a powerful teacher. With every point, Jessica realized that her own mother had been a figure of resilience, battling against societal views and paving the way for Jessica's self-discovery. In the corner of her eye, she could glimpse Max's expression morph. The earlier intrigue was fading into something else, an earnest reflection, perhaps, or a poorly concealed dread. It was now or never. With a daring step forward, she locked eyes with him again. What if I fail to meet their expectations? What if they dismantle my credibility without witnessing the value I could bring? Each word fell heavy, like raindrops breaking a long drought. Suddenly, she caught a flicker of recognition from him, a sympathetic glint that suggested maybe he, too, understood the precarious nature of vulnerability. In that rarefied corner of their history, a myriad of emotions flooded over her, a thread of guilt, desire, and an unpleasant tingle of uncertainty. Yet, she had no room for those diversions. Her presentation needed to matter, it was not merely about her anymore. The concluding remarks drew her to a climax filled with potent urgency. I stand here as proof that we cannot be confined by stereotypical narratives. My story is entwined with this company now, and together we can drive a vision that amplifies innovation in every facet. It is our failures that cement our paths, not our victories. She finished on a strong note, feeling a rush of emotion flood through her. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, but growing louder and more insistent. Relief washed over her, palpable and intoxicating. Yet, what she craved just as desperately was an immediate engagement with Max to clarify the ambiguity, confront both the past and the challenge that lay ahead. But then, as she scanned the burgeoning crowd, an unmistakable shift occurred. A group at the back had shifted noticeably, whispering to one another, evidently critical of her performance. As the applause settled, Jessica's heart sank. Were they still holding on to their biases, or had she merely managed to rattle their cages temporarily? Her mind raced while her heart thudded in her ears like a battle drum. Could she truly craft her identity in this space, risking her history with Max for the chance of acceptance? The clock was ticking down on the inevitable. A moment of clarity stood just out of reach, stifled beneath the weight of expectations. The question that lingered was not only about professional acceptance but also personal validation. Seeing a familiar figure stride purposefully toward her, Jessica braced herself. Max's look was intense, she could sense the storm brewing just beneath his composed surface. Did he intend to bridge the divide or push her back into the shadows? The tension mounted, a tightly wound string ready to snap. Jessica, he began, voice low enough to hush the noise around them. An urgency threaded through his words. We need to talk. She felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation swell within. Their past was about to collide with her present. Would facing him now seal her fate or unearth an unexpected opportunity for both of them? The silence between them hummed with unspoken words, vibrant with the weight of their shared history. Jessica's eyes narrowed as she searched Max's face for clues to discern his intentions. It took only a moment for her breath to hitch, reminding her of the frailty she had almost overcome. "Can we go somewhere quieter?" Max asked, scanning the room. Jessica couldn't help but wonder what he was really feeling, concerned for her or apprehensive for himself. A cacophony of unresolved emotions twisted in her gut, spurring her to action. She nodded, leading the way to a small conference room further down the corridor. As the door clicked shut, settling them into an intimate bubble, an awkward stillness engulfed the space, charged with uncertainty. Jessica fought the urge to fill the void with small talk. This was a pivotal moment she had anticipated for so long, but now that it was here, it felt like standing on the precipice of a dark canyon. "Listen," he started, raking a hand through his hair, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability that felt foreign in their professional dynamic. "What you did back there was incredible. I'm not just saying that but you're still concerned about how they'll see me," she interrupted, cutting through the swirl of his defense. "You're the one I've never gotten past." Her voice trembled slightly, but she held fast to the intensity of her declaration. Max's expression twisted. "It's not about that. I know the challenges you face as a mother. I've seen how hard you've worked, I admire that." His words were soft, yet they struck with such vigor that Jessica felt momentarily dislodged from her restraints. She could feel the years, the bitter silence, the unresolved tension between them coiling up. "Do you really?" Jessica challenged. "Or are you just saying that because, for a fleeting moment, it's the right thing to say? I bared my soul out there for the first time. I'm not looking for platitudes, Max. I want real acknowledgement." Max's response manifested as a tight-lipped scowl, evidence of a deeper frustration emanating from within. "It's not easy for me either, Jessica. I walked out of my own comfort zone up there to support you." The words landed heavy, stirring an unsettling blend of gratitude and resentment inside her. Frustration bubbled beneath the surface. Support isn't just watching from the sidelines. It's leaning in, rejecting mediocrity, and challenging the narrative. You, of all people, should understand that. She waved her hands vehemently, feeling the swell of indignation erupting within her, the call for mutual respect unveiling a simmering edge of fear. The tension in the room shifted as Max took a measured breath, grounding them both in a moment of clarity. "Jessica, I see you. I see what you've become, and you're much more than a statistic to be debated. The way you've defined your experiences, it's inspirational." Her heart quickened at his words, a strange mixture of hope and trepidation burgeoning within her. Could she finally bridge the gap between their pasts, forge a connection that wasn't tainted by the shadows of expectations? "I want to be embraced for all that I am, and I need your support to reinforce that, not diminish it." Max stepped closer, an uncharacteristic tenderness breaking through his often cautious demeanor. "Then let us reshape how we approach this together. We aren't meant to be divided by our past, we should be collaborating to challenge perceptions." Jessica felt the tremors of panic vibrate through her. He was offering her a partnership, yet the enormity of it sent her spiraling. "Can we really shift the culture, Max? I fear that sharing too much will expose me to more than I'm ready for." Vulnerability brings both strength and peril. Max positioned himself in alignment with her gaze, grounding her erratic thoughts. "You're not alone anymore." Just then, the soft hum of a knock disturbed their heavy moment. Jessica's breath caught as a familiar figure slipped into view, her boss, a pulsing reminder of the looming professional ramifications. The door swung wide, heralding a critical confrontation she hadn't anticipated. "Jessica, we need to talk about your presentation and the reactions to it," her boss said, cutting through any semblance of safety Jessica had felt moments before. Jessica froze, her world narrowing as she collated a whirlwind of next steps and possible outcomes. "This is it," her instincts whispered. The confrontation with her history was inextricably tied to the challenges of her present. Max? She barely whispered, a single silencing thought. Was this a final closing chapter, or merely chapter one of a new? The moment hung in the air, heavy with implications that threatened to cascade into chaos. Jessica tried to gather her thoughts as she turned toward her boss, who exuded an attitude of relentless authority, oblivious to the emotional turmoil roiling within her. Right now? She stammered, panic clawing at her throat. Every instinct told her this was not the time to discuss her performance, especially not after exposing her vulnerability to Max. She needed space to breathe, to process the enormity of the support they had just laid out. But here they were, thrust back into the corporate arena, their personal revelations overshadowed by the specter of scrutiny. Her boss's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing her demeanor with keen precision. Yes, Jessica. I need clarity on what just happened. Your presentation was, well, unexpected. The sound of her boss's tone dripped with condescension, an echo of the very judgment she had fought against for years. Max's presence as a sounding board now felt like an anchor, but as Jessica searched his face, she saw a mix of anticipation and worry mirrored in his expression. The comfort she had momentarily found in their interaction faded, replaced by the stark reality that she was still alone in this battle. Taking a deep breath, Jessica gathered herself. It was unexpected because I chose to be honest about the challenges we face. It's time we acknowledge the depth of the issue, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. You mean challenges that don't defeat your professionalism? Because that's how it felt in that large gathering. If we're going to redefine the narrative, Jessica, we need to consider the broader implications. The cold practicality of her boss's words cut deeper than she expected, each syllable hitting her like a battering ram against her resolve. Inside Jessica, a fire ignited. Maybe it was embarrassment mingled with anger. She could no longer let her circumstances define her value. She had fought hard to claim her voice, and she wasn't going to retreat now. The past may haunt her, but she was not bound by it. I refuse to play it safe anymore. My experiences are powerful, and if sharing them shakes others from their complacency, then so be it. Her boss crossed her arms, a gesture of defiance. You're playing with fire. This is a business, and we can't afford missteps. The board isn't ready for such vulnerabilities. Jessica's heartbeat quickened as she fought to keep her expression neutral. Then let us prepare them. If they don't see the strength in vulnerability, they're missing out on the chance to progress. I believe it's time for us to evolve collectively. Max shifted slightly beside her, his expression now encouraging. Jessica could sense his belief in her, a buoy against the tide of her boss's dismissal. The tension had shifted, something deep within her wanted to break free of the constraints others placed on her, to be embraced for the ambitious and competent woman she had fought to become. Choose the path you want to take, Jessica, her boss snapped, impatience oozing through her voice. But know this, every choice has weight. Every word from her boss felt like a challenge thrown down, the invisible gauntlet of their professional rivalry prodding at her. Jessica took a step forward, fueled by a newfound clarity. I choose to step into my power, to redefine my narrative, that of a single mother, a dedicated employee, a complex person. I will not be weighed down by another's expectations any longer. We'll see, her boss replied, turning her gaze toward Max. I'll allow you to follow this course for now, but understand, I'm not convinced you can pull it off. Jessica's mind raced, a flurry of emotions competing for dominance. She may have opened a door she couldn't close, but it was one she had long wanted to kick down. Her eyes held Max's, seeking affirmation, hoping he understood the magnitude of what she had just claimed, not just for herself, but in this unpredictable partnership. Jessica, Max said gently, allowing a fraction of his warmth to seep into the moment, every transformation starts with a choice. Only you can define how this chapter unfolds. His words simmered in her consciousness, mingling with the weight of her boss's skepticism. With the battle lines drawn, the stakes had never felt higher. Was she bold enough to continue along this path, to embrace the risks of exposing her full self? Tomorrow, Jessica said, I'm joining the roundtable discussion and bringing my perspective fully into the conversation. She watched her boss's eyebrows raise, surprise mingling with apprehension. Would her decision be the catalyst for change, or would it incite backlash? Let us see what tomorrow holds, Max said, his voice steady with an underlying reassurance. With those words echoing in her heart, Jessica knew she had just ignited the fuse to her own evolution, one that could transform not just her future but the entire narrative of her professional life. As she stepped back into the corridor, the weight of anticipation surged within her. Would she rise to meet the challenges ahead, or would her past shackle her to doubt once more? The stage was set, and the real test lay ahead. With a tense inhale, Jessica braced herself for the inevitable confrontation with her past and the looming judgment of others. The journey into this uncharted territory was only just beginning. As dawn broke, cloaking the city in a soft golden hue, Jessica felt a restless energy coil in her stomach. Today was the day the roundtable discussion loomed like a storm cloud above her head, pregnant with uncertainty but also ripe with possibility. She knew she was stepping into the unknown, but there was something intoxicating about it, a chance to rewrite her narrative, an opportunity to face the skeptics head-on. Dressed in a tailored navy skirt and a crisp blouse, Jessica caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the office glass doors. The woman staring back at her looked professional, poised, yet a sliver of doubt whispered in the back of her mind, a familiar yet unwelcome companion. What if her voice faltered? What if her boss's warnings echoed in her mind, clouding her resolve? Focus, she told herself, pushing through the doorway and striding toward the conference room. As she walked, she could feel a mixture of admiration and disbelief from colleagues lingering in the hall. They were aware of her struggle, of her recent transition from timid team member to vocal advocate for change. The weight of their scrutiny wrapped around her like an unsought cloak, urging her to retreat, to shrink back into the shadows. Inside the conference room, the air buzzed with chatter, a symphony of divergent ideas already in motion. Max was perched at the oval table, a reassuring presence among familiar faces that ranged from receptive allies to unyielding adversaries. Jessica took a breath, steadying her nerves, absorbing every detail: the polished wood of the table, the soft hum of the air conditioning, the subtle scent of brewed coffee mingling with the crispness of paper. As she settled into her seat, she noticed her boss observing her from across the table. There was no mistaking the challenge in her eyes, flanked by an arrogance that left no room for error. Jessica tightened her grip on the document outlining her points. She had rehearsed and revised, obsessively creating a framework that would frame her authenticity as an asset rather than a liability. The discussion began, with various team leads voicing their opinions on the project's trajectory, the market's impact, and strategies moving forward. Each voice, infused with confidence and authority, hammered down like a judge's gavel. Jessica listened intently but felt an impatient storm brewing inside her. She was ready to step into the fray, to disrupt the status quo and advocate for a perspective that was long overdue. And next, we have Jessica sharing her insights, the moderator announced, gesturing toward her. The room dimmed, and a collective wave of expectation scrutinized her. It was now or never. Jessica swallowed hard, feeling her heart race as she drew the attention of the room. "Thank you for the introduction," she began, her voice unwavering. "Today, I want to talk about vulnerability as a strength. Too often, we equate honesty with weakness, but I believe our shared experiences can foster collaboration and innovation." She launched into her narrative, weaving personal anecdotes that intertwined her life as a single mother with the challenges their team faced. The words flowed with newfound assurance. In laying her story bare, she stripped the veneer off corporate professionalism, inviting her colleagues to embrace authenticity in all its forms. As she spoke, Jessica glanced at Max, who nodded encouragingly. Her eyes wandered around the room, capturing expressions that ranged from skeptical to intrigued. In those moments, she felt the pressure begin to shift, the rigidity in the air loosening. Acknowledgement flickered among the listeners, an instinct that perhaps it was time for a paradigm change. But just as she felt an exhilarating wave of momentum surge through her, her boss interjected with a sharp tone, "Jessica, while your point is heartfelt, we need actionable insights, not just emotional narratives. Let us keep this grounded in performance metrics." A wave of indignation washed over Jessica, but she quelled it. This was the confrontation she anticipated. One steeped in her boss's reluctance to embrace new models of discourse. "Performance metrics are essential," Jessica replied, converting her initial frustration into determination. "But that data can only take us so far. If we neglect the human aspect, we risk isolating our team and stifling creativity." Returning to the tide of her discussion, she presented ideas focusing on how fostering an inclusive work environment could lead to better innovation and productivity. Each statistic she shared was now laced with a potent authenticity, a plea for the colleagues in the room to recognize the disunity that could stem from ignoring the voice of vulnerability. The room remained tense, divided. Questions emerged, some challenging, others supportive. She navigated their inquiries with a steady hand, but uncertainty gnawed at her edges. Had she seeded doubt in her ability to balance vulnerability with professionalism, or had she advocated for necessary change? As the meeting drew to a close, Jessica sensed the air shimmer with unsettled energy. She had not secured unanimous approval, but the conversation had ignited a flicker of potential transformation. Stepping back into the corridor, she felt hollow yet invigorated, a testament to her internal struggle, the tension between fear and the tenacity to fight for her voice. Tomorrow seemed inevitable, a promise entwined with challenges that awaited her, but uncertainty loomed as heavy thoughts churned inside her mind. Would she be able to withstand the scrutiny of her boss and the board, or would her ruminations on vulnerability lead her into deeper professional strife? In that moment of reflection, she realized the journey ahead would demand more than courage. It would require strategic introspection, an embrace of every ounce of her being, and a willingness to redefine the involved definitions of respect and assertiveness in her workplace. Secrets lingered among her colleagues, and at their helm, her boss watched with calculated intensity. As doubt loomed silently unaware, the next day promised precisely what Jessica now needed: a confrontation that could uncover truths buried beneath layers of corporate decorum. Would she forge a new path, or would she succumb to the unyielding demands of the past? Glaring fluorescent lights greeted Jessica as she approached her desk. Her heart raced from last night's meeting, where she had momentarily transcended the boundaries of her previous self. Each click of her heels echoed her resolve to face yet another day, a canvas still tainted with uncertainty and the remnants of doubt. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the steam curling upwards, mimicking the hidden tension still swirling in her mind from her boss's critical remarks. As she sipped, she reflected on the fleeting moments in the conference room. The end result hadn't been a commitment but rather an invitation for dialogue, and the uncertainty gnawed deeper. Had her vulnerability truly resonated? Or had it merely confirmed her boss's assertions about emotional narratives being weak? Jessica sat at her computer, her mind a whirl of thoughts. She began to draft an email to her boss, hoping to clarify her intentions and suggest a follow-up meeting to discuss her ideas in more detail. She hesitated, fingers poised over the keyboard as she wrestled with her instinct to defend herself. It was easy to remain paralyzed in front of the screen, letting past criticisms echo louder than her own aspirations. Instead of shying away, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. A new thought began to form. What if she could turn this challenge into an opportunity, instead of merely seeking her boss's approval? What if she could channel the energy from the last meeting into something more actionable? She resolved to look beyond the immediate judgments and tackle the larger concerns of the team. In that moment of clarity, she began typing fervently. Subject: follow-up on yesterday's meeting, she wrote. I appreciate your feedback and would like to propose a workshop where team members can share personal experiences related to our project challenges. I believe it could cultivate deeper connections among us and generate actionable insights. Sending the email felt like releasing a heavy weight, yet she remained aware of the lingering anxiety about her boss's response. She knew that despite crafting her words carefully, she could not predict how they would be received. However, the act of proposing a workshop was already a leap toward taking charge of her narrative. The remainder of the day passed like a blur, meetings scheduled with colleagues intrigued by her idea. Although tentative, they expressed willingness to participate. As she engaged them in casual conversations during lunch, she discovered hidden talents among her peers. One had a talent for facilitation that might help lead the workshop, while another had a knack for graphic design that could make their material engaging. These connections felt invigorating, they sparked a sense of collaboration that had long been absent. Yet, time with Jessica's colleagues only heightened her awareness of the shadows looming just outside their shared dialogue. Every encounter with her boss served as a reminder, the scrutiny weighed increasingly heavy. What if she was dismissed again, this time for daring to suggest a shift in their approach? As the day wound down, the prospect of the workshop seemed daunting yet exhilarating. She appeared outwardly calm, but inside, her mind wrestled with the implications of inviting vulnerability within the harsh atmosphere of a corporate setting. Would transparency be met with hostility or acceptance? Walking to her car, she was abruptly jostled by her thoughts and the din of the busy parking lot. The tension coiled tight within her chest, manifested in fleeting images of what could go wrong. But alongside it, a flicker of hope burst forth. After allowing herself to be vulnerable before, this could become her moment of truth, where authenticity yielded strength rather than weakness. As she drove home, she considered how much she wanted to stretch the boundaries, to transform the culture surrounding her. Capturing these emotions, she pondered how they might fuel her next conversation with her boss, perhaps confronting her with a level of determination she had yet to exhibit. With her heart thrumming in synchronicity with her thoughts, Jessica realized that the process of change would not come from outside her, but from embracing every uncomfortable moment of her journey. Upon arriving home and stepping into the warm embrace of her daughter, she felt reinvigorated. Her resolve solidified between them, a silent promise to break free from societal expectations that had once held her down. But an email alert buzzed on her phone, pausing her as she hugged her daughter closely. A response from her boss slid into view. "Let's talk. I'm not sure this workshop is the right direction for us." Jessica felt that familiar tension dangle like an unresolved question in the air. She wondered if this would be the moment she faced the ultimate challenge, the need to assert her vision against the weighty influence of authority, and whether that could dismantle the barriers standing between herself and the potential she felt rising within. The opportunity to navigate this pivotal moment of confrontation was on the horizon. Would she rise to the occasion, or would she find herself backing down once more? Jessica sat at her kitchen table, the weight of her boss's response still fresh in her mind. The fluorescent lights that had greeted her that morning were dimmed now, replaced by the soft glow of evening lamps. She cradled her cup, gazing into the dark liquid, as if expecting the answer to emerge from its depths. She could almost hear her thoughts echoing her boss's skepticism. What if her well-intentioned effort was perceived as misguided? Was this even the right path for her? She glanced at her daughter, busy building a tower of blocks on the floor, blissfully unaware of the turmoil swirling in her mother's heart. Jessica admired her daughter's determination, seemingly conquering her little world with each piece stacked higher. Perhaps, she mused, the key lay in that very determination, the willingness to take risks and to build, even in the face of judgment. In an impulsive moment, Jessica grabbed her laptop, feeling the familiar thrill of ideas pressing against her consciousness. Perhaps the workshop could be reimagined, not just a space for sharing, but an arena for genuine healing and growth. She started to type again, expanding on her initial proposal, weaving in ways she believed her team could approach it collaboratively, suggesting icebreakers to make the conversation more approachable. Ideas flowed, emboldened by the thought that her vision could indeed make a difference. Each word she typed became a brick in her own towering structure of resolve. After sending off the revised proposal, she returned to her daughter, who was struggling with a particularly tall tower. "You can do this," Jessica encouraged, kneeling to her level. "Just believe in what you're building, one piece at a time." Her heart fluttered as she witnessed her daughter's focused determination. Perhaps there was a parallel here. If she could convince herself to visualize success amidst doubts, maybe the same could empower others. The next day loomed large. Every click of the keyboard amplified her uncertainty. Jessica spent her commute mentally rehearsing the conversation with her boss, but each scenario felt heavier than the last. Would she clam up under scrutiny, or could she stand firm in her newfound clarity? Upon arriving at the office, her heart thrummed an anxious rhythm. Each encounter felt laced with significance. She greeted her colleagues, but some exchanged apprehensive glances as they whispered about the workshop. It dawned on her that this fear mirrored her own, an unspoken worry about putting themselves on the line in a professional setting steeped in cynicism. They, too, were wearing masks of armor. Perhaps her vulnerability could inspire theirs. Then came the meeting. Sitting across from her boss, despite the slight tremor in her hands, Jessica locked eyes with him squarely. She could feel the intensity of the moment, as if the very air had thickened with tension. "I appreciate your feedback on my workshop idea," she began, her voice steadying with each word. "But I believe it could be a transformative opportunity for our team. We have so much untapped potential that could flourish in a supportive environment." Watching her boss's face for any sign of disapproval felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. But instead of retreating, she leaned forward, pouring forth her passion for building connections and fostering loyalty, critical elements she felt were essential to their success. Her boss leaned back, arms crossed, considering her words. Jessica felt a tightness in her chest. The silence was deafening. Just as she feared she had lost him, he spoke. "I see your points, Jessica. But the stakes are high here, and I'm concerned." As he continued outlining his apprehensions, her breath caught. What if she lost this chance? Yet, something tangible surged within her, a resolve that bolted through like electricity. She interjected gently but firmly, "I fully understand the risks and understand what we stand to gain through openness and collaboration. We could inspire not just our project's outcome but redefine our workplace atmosphere. If we don't try, we already fail." The seconds stretched in palpable tension, and Jessica felt a rush of warmth flooding her cheeks. Would she be seen as a rebellious outlier, or did this assertive stand push her into a new light? Her boss's gaze softened, and she sensed a shift happening right before her eyes. "You're passionate about this, I can see that. Let us refine the outline together." The words hung in the air with unexpected weight. For the first time, it felt as though unseen barriers were beginning to crack. The resonance of their exchange ignited Jessica's ambition, lighting the flame of possibility both for herself and her team. Yet, as the conversation transitioned to practical steps, doubt still flickered at the edges of her mind. Was her boldness already shifting the culture, or would challenges emerge from this endeavor she couldn't foresee? With her heart racing and adrenaline coursing through her veins, she realized that change, though daunting, had begun within her. As she exited the meeting room, a new path opened before her, filled with unknown yet tantalizing potential. But was she prepared for the next set of challenges that would significantly test her bravery and resolve? The real test lay ahead, waiting to unfold. Jessica's thoughts spiraled, balancing between optimism and the fears that had clung to her heart like shadows. With the meeting fresh in her mind, she rushed to her desk, filled with a newfound resolve. Could one conversation truly be the catalyst of change she had longed for? The hours ticked by, each passing minute amplifying her anticipation. As colleagues buzzed around her, her senses were heightened, observing the subtle dynamics of the workplace. She noticed a group huddled in the corner, speaking in hushed tones, glancing her way. It stung, that familiar feeling of being an outsider. Was it her ambition or her vulnerability that they questioned? Determined not to falter, she began drafting proposals that she could share with her team. Icebreakers, collaborative exercises, and avenues for honest feedback flowed from her fingers. This was no longer just a workshop, it was a launchpad for transformation, a space where they could collectively dismantle the barriers that had long divided them. Yet, as she typed, her mind still wandered into uncertainty. Would they embrace her vision or reject it? Feeling her pulse quicken, she couldn't shake the notion of her boss's skepticism. What if they dismissed her ideas as naive? The prospect loomed larger as she touched the screen, hesitating to hit send on her detailed plans. In that moment of indecision, Jessica recoiled inward, her thoughts wrestling with doubt. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. This was the time to be brave, she reminded herself, much like her daughter when faced with an overwhelming tower of blocks. "You got this, Jess," she whispered, fiercely convincing herself as she clicked send. The response was swift. Her supervisor, obviously intrigued by the potential of her proposal, requested a follow-up meeting with the entire team. Anxiety flickered within her, but so did a thrill, a chance to present her ideas to those she wished to inspire. Preparation became her constant companion, researching strategies, gathering feedback, and refining her approach consumed her thoughts. As the days drew closer to the team meeting, her confidence grew, tempered by persistent doubts. Jessica noted changes within herself. She felt herself developing a keen sense of leadership, a newfound tenacity bolstered by the inspiration she drew from within. Yet the ladder of ambition felt slippery, each rung ascended felt precarious, with the fear of losing her balance a constant presence. The night before the meeting, she sat cross-legged on the floor, blocks scattered around her as her daughter played. Jessica couldn't help but smile, recalling the resilience her child exhibited. That little girl built her towers without fear, meeting each setback with a determination that belied her small size. The metaphor mirrored her journey, igniting a fire within. Focused and daring, she formulated her approach, weaving personal anecdotes into the presentation, believing that vulnerability could indeed foster connection. Reflected in her daughter's smile, she saw the strength in being open, in embracing the possibility of failure as a step toward growth. Finally, the morning arrived. Jessica stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her blouse, gathering her courage. Each word of affirmation she spoke to the reflection instilled a power deep within her. She felt prepared, grounded, in control of her narrative. As she entered the conference room, her stomach churned with anticipation. Familiar faces turned towards her, expectant and judging in equal measure. She acknowledged the apprehension brewing among her peers, aware that her journey into leadership would face scrutiny. But in that moment, she summoned all she had cultivated, channeled the belief she had nurtured deep inside. With her heart racing but with a steady voice, she began her presentation. The energy shifted as she spoke from her core, sharing not just her ideas, but the transformative vision that had sparked within her. The room began to respond, their guarded expressions softening as she articulated her dreams of unity and collaboration. But just as she began to sense a shift, an unexpected voice interjected, a colleague known for his biting criticisms. "But how do we know this isn't just more fluff?" he challenged, eyebrows raised, casting a shadow over her confidence. The question sliced through the air. For Jessica, the moment crystallized a pivotal point where she would either retreat or confront this doubt head-on. She felt a rush of adrenaline, the instinct to defend her vision igniting a fierce determination. "That's an important point," she replied, navigating through the tension. "You may see it as fluff, but I see this as an opportunity to rebuild trust and connection, a tangible change that recalibrates our environment." The room held its breath. Would she sway them, or would the backlash push her dreams to the brink? In that moment, as the conversation heated, Jessica understood, this was the threshold of her evolution, the instant that could define her career. But what remained to be seen was how all the underlying tensions would manifest, and whether she would be able to navigate through them to achieve the transformation she fervently desired. And amid that uncertainty, a new question arose, one that threatened both her courage and her resolve. Could she endure the confrontation, face the fallout, and still emerge as the leader she aspired to be? As the meeting buzzed with tension and anticipation, Jessica felt herself teetering between fear and empowerment. Her heart pounded as she navigated a labyrinth of emotions while maintaining an outward facade of composure. Her colleague's skepticism hung in the air, heavy and undeniable, but she refused to let it stifle her voice. "That's an important point," Jessica reiterated, determination anchoring her tone. "You may see it as fluff, but I see this as an opportunity to rebuild trust and connection, a tangible change that recalibrates our environment." She acknowledged the doubts swirling among her peers, understanding that resistance often signaled buried fears rather than mere criticism. Jessica felt a shift in the atmosphere, eyes darted among each other, perhaps indicating the germination of curiosity. It was a moment ripe with possibility, and she was determined to seize it. Drawing upon her personal experiences with motherhood, the resilience it demanded and the profound lessons it imparted, she painted a vivid picture of how vulnerability could strengthen relationships and enhance productivity. "But how does this translate into our bottom line?" interjected another colleague, arms crossed defensively. "Vulnerability fosters trust," she argued passionately. "When we allow ourselves to be seen, valued, and understood, it creates an environment fueled by collaboration and innovation, a workforce ready to engage fully, not just in tasks but in vision." The enthusiasm rippling through her colleagues was palpable. They leaned closer, hungry for more. As the dialogue continued, Jessica guided the discussion, deftly managing questions and objections with an authenticity that resonated deeply. The workshop she envisioned began to emerge not as a proposal for improvement but as a necessary evolution for their entire corporate culture. For every mixed expression she encountered, she countered with conviction, drawing upon her recent experiences as a single mother navigating corporate waters, advocating for the right to be seen as both a professional and a person. Finally, the meeting reached its apex. Jessica surveyed the room, sensing the energy building. Many colleagues were nodding, their initial skepticism dissolving, replaced by intrigue, even enthusiasm, for this deeper dive into vulnerability. They began to share their own apprehensions, unveiling personal anecdotes that fortified her initial thesis, the very thing she intended to explore in the workshop. With new confidence coursing through her, she declared, "Together, we can create a space for honest dialogue, turning our stories, struggles, and triumphs into actionable insights that fuel our progress. Imagine what we can achieve if we embrace who we are at work." As the meeting concluded, applause erupted, though tinged with hesitation. Jessica felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had not only entertained her ideas but championed a transformative momentum, one that could redefine their collective future. The tension was palpable, but also electrified with new purpose. A day passed, then two. Her workshop took shape amidst collaborative efforts, fueled by genuine feedback and shared experiences. Colleagues began engaging with one another in ways Jessica had hoped for. Conversations ignited over coffee breaks, mentors emerged, and partnerships blossomed. Then, one afternoon, as she prepared her final presentation for the workshop, an unexpected message arrived from her boss, a warm invitation to attend the session. The weight of anticipation sat heavy on her shoulders. Would this be an opportunity for validation or another moment of scrutiny? On the day of the workshop, Jessica stood before her gathered colleagues, including her boss, nerves pricking at her confidence. Yet, as she looked into the eager faces before her, cautiously hopeful and curious, Jessica felt the room pulse with energy. During the session, participants dove into discussions ranging from professional aspirations to the challenges they faced, enabling her colleagues to articulate their vulnerabilities audaciously. They navigated through a series of exercises she had crafted to promote trust, forging bonds that had been stifled by years of detached professionalism. The workshop unfolded as a tangible success, but the crowning moment came when her boss stood up unexpectedly. "Jessica," she declared, her voice rich with newfound respect, "your initiative to explore vulnerability has not only uplifted the atmosphere, it's genuinely reshaping perceptions of how we operate as a team." The word sent a rush of warmth through Jessica, an affirmation that she had effectively bridged the chasm between personal and professional. In the days that followed, recognition poured in, rippling through the workplace as success stories emerged from within the now vibrant culture. Jessica received accolades not just from peers but from management, solidifying her position within the organization. The mockery once hurled her way was transformed into admiration, and she could finally breathe without fear. But the most significant achievement was not merely the recognition. It was the profound confidence that solidified within her. She stared back at her reflection with pride. No longer did she view herself as the single mom resented for her struggles. She had transformed into a leader unyielding in spirit, capable of challenging narratives and pushing their boundaries. Jessica embraced the truth of her journey, honoring the process of growth that had shaped her. The echo of each laugh, each moment shared, stood testament to her strength, resilience, and unwavering belief that vulnerability held the power to transform even the most hardened spaces. As she returned home each day to her daughter, there was a new lightness about her, a balance between her roles as a mother and a professional, each reinforcing the other. In watching her child navigate life with unwavering courage, Jessica found herself more than equipped for the challenges ahead. This journey of self-discovery was about so much more than a promotion or acceptance. It was a reclamation of her narrative. Jessica realized that each moment dedicated to authenticity not only enriched her life but rekindled her relationship with her work, etching a path toward a future brimming with possibilities. And as she thrived, she understood that the true essence of her resolve lay not in turning back but in continuously embracing the beautiful messiness of life, fearlessly conquering every challenge ahead. Now, if you found inspiration in Jessica's journey and her unwavering growth, subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that resonate deeply. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, ensuring these meaningful narratives reach those who need them most. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this stunning conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness Jessica's transformative journey. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to become part of our community.